So we'll go ahead and get started. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Like always, I want to remind everybody of our mission, which is to provide faith-based training and coaching for anybody or anyone who desires long-term employment. And our vision is to see a marketplace where work and faith connect. I'll open us up in just a brief word of prayer, and then we have a few announcements, and then we'll get to our guest right after that. So please bow your heads with me. Father God, Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this day. I come to you this morning to pray for forgiveness and wisdom and protection as we go about our day today. I specifically come to you this morning to pray for our time together, that we may hear something from our guest and the questions that helps us to better connect our work and our faith. We ask all this in your holy and precious name, Lord. Amen. So this morning, I've asked our manager of development, Christina Kinder, to give us a brief update on our By Faith breakfast, which is coming up. And then followed by that, we'll have Tony, the director of our community engagement, give us a brief update on the iWork Hiring Expo that will be hosted in September. So with that, Christina, you can take it.
Thanks so much, Matt. So like Matt said, we do have our By Faith breakfast coming up on September 1st, and it is at the Hilton of the Americas, downtown Houston. Starts at 7 a.m. and we promise to get you out of there right at 8:30 so you can get on your day. But we will have breakfast and music, as well as client testimonies to share how WorkFaith has impacted them. Our keynote speaker this year is Bill Courtney, who is an Academy Award winner for the film Undefeated. He's a successful businessman, and he has truly lived a life of work and faith. So we are so excited to hear his just inspiring story and message for us. The event is absolutely free to anyone who can attend, and we are following COVID protocols. So masks will be worn by WorkFaith and Hilton staff. Hilton will be practicing their clean stay policies. We will be spacing our tables out 6 feet apart and limiting the number of attendees per table. So we hope that you can come. The link to register should be in the chat box, and we hope to see you there. Tony, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Christina. So we have some exciting news for job seekers and employers. On September 22nd, we'll be hosting our first in-person iWork Houston Hiring Expo, which will take place at Houston's First Baptist Church downtown. We are expecting over 50 employers. We'll have prayer partners on site to pray with you about your career journey, and we'll also have on-site interviews. So if you are looking for work, or if you are an employer who is hiring, we invite you to join us on September 22nd, and I'll go ahead and place those links in the chat. And without further ado, I have the privilege of introducing you to our CEO, Anthony Flynn, who will be interviewing our special guest, Mr. Rennie. So I'll let Anthony take it away.
Hey, thank you, Tony. Can you all hear me? Right. Okay, great. Hey, everyone. I wanted to lead with an apology. It's a congratulatory apology. I'm here in the dorms at the Ohio State University, where we're moving my son in. He's about 20 paces away from me, getting settled in his dorm room. So I do apologize. I'm technically off, but I didn't want to take off for this time together. This is a very special time where each month we get to interview dynamic leaders who are doing amazing things for the kingdom. And so I certainly did not want to miss this opportunity to connect with my brother, Rennie Curran. So to give you all a little context, Rennie and I met. It's amazing, man, how time flies. Rennie and I met when he was actually in high school. So I was helping to facilitate a pretty major event in Atlanta, Georgia. We had some of the top professional athletes in the world, literally some of the top brands. I mean, Dr. J, Ray Lewis, Jim Brown, Alonzo Mourning, some of the top brands in the world, all in the room together. It was a pretty crazy event in Atlanta, Georgia. We had a big award for an outstanding high school student that we thought had the potential to really not only have a dominant college career, but also possibly go on to play in the NFL. And that student was Rennie Curran. Rennie was a senior in high school. when we met. And so many of us knew that he would become a dynamic leader. And sure enough, he went on to the University of Georgia. And Rennie, I'm going to have you make any corrections. Rennie is a pretty humble guy. He's very accomplished, but pretty humble. But I'm going to ask you, don't be humble in this moment because I may miss some stuff. I think so. You were a 3-time All-American football player and Butkus Award candidate. For those who are not aware, the Butkus Award is the #1 linebacker in all of college football, every conference across the country. He was a Butkus finalist. Rennie took down Tim Tebow on a number of occasions. We have footage where Rennie put some heat on Tim Tebow. Rennie played at the University of Georgia. Of course, Tim Tebow was at the University of Florida. Y'all remember Rennie? By the way, I interviewed Danny Warfel a few sessions back, so they got a dose of Danny in the University of Florida. But nice. Rennie was there. Rennie was there to put heat on Tim Tebow, so he can personally attest to to some of the wars between the University of Georgia and Florida. And Rennie, tell us about a couple of other awards you had in college. Again, I know this is not the normal, but I'm asking you to tell us this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And as I heard you talking about your son and how you're at the Ohio State, I immediately thought back to when we first met and just how crucial that time was, and having guys like you in my life who mentored me and guided me and just gave me that exposure, man. But as far as being at University of Georgia, I had the Butkus Award finalist, Lombardi Award finalist, Ronnie Lott Award finalist. I was a permanent team captain, team MVP. A lot of different awards, and it was just a result of just getting out there and putting forth that effort and having the right teammates as well too. I can't talk about awards without talking about the guys who, took on blocks for me, guys who sacrificed their body, the coaches that poured into me. I mean, you know how it is, man, just the amount of things that go into your overall success as an athlete. So, yeah.
And Rennie, you know what, since we're on that, I want to just dive right in. I normally have these interviews, I usually have a series of questions lined up, but for you, because of our history and relationship, I just, I'm just going. So one of the things that I want everybody to note about Rennie, right? So talking about, Christine, we have the By Faith breakfast coming up here soon. And so By Faith, Rennie's story is a complete By Faith story, because Rennie was always gross, according to the NFL and according to college, he was grossly undersized. Rennie, talk a little bit about your battles with being an undersized person in your position. Tell everybody, maybe if you think of it like the average size of a linebacker, the role you play. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, the undersized thing, man, it started back in high school, and I had got moved from running back to linebacker. So linebacker wasn't even my natural position. So I basically just, I didn't get along with my coach my freshman year. And we all know, if you've been with a leader or a boss or somebody you don't really like, and they put you in a position you can't stand, just how that can sometimes go, it doesn't always really go well. For me, at that time, I was about 14 years old. I went and talked to my little league coach, and he told me something that I never forget, something I live by to this day. He said, "Rennie Curran, I want you to focus on what you can control." And for me, that meant my effort, that meant my leadership abilities, that meant my mindset, that meant my faith, that meant my heart, all those things. And so I took that onto the field, and I tell everybody this. I was like, man, I was like Waterboy, Adam Sandler. I told myself I was going to hit every single thing moving. I wasn't going to let anybody stop me from getting to what God had for me. And playing linebacker, man, I just went out there and I just went. It's a mentality. Playing linebacker is a mentality. It's about hunting. It's about, regardless of where you're on the field, making something happen. And so got out there, started to make some good things happen, got moved up after my freshman year immediately to varsity, which never happened at our school. And immediately after that, once I got on the field there, overcame adversity to get on the field, I started hearing all the experts and even from some of my coaches and teammates that, I can make plays, but I'm not necessarily tall enough to play at the SEC level. And, that's just gave me more feel. Every time there was a newspaper article, every time there was a recruiter who came out, that was the first thing that they looked at was my height. And so it just motivated me. It gave me that feel to get in the weight room, to continue to perfect my craft, to continue to lean on the things that I knew God had given me. I knew that they could measure certain things, right? They could measure my speed, they could measure my height, they could measure, you know, my quickness from side to side, but they couldn't measure my heart. They couldn't measure my mind. They couldn't measure my faith. And those were a lot of things that I leaned on to really set myself apart. And, you know, as I climbed, as I got to University of Georgia, you know, I wasn't their first priority at all, but it was because I showed out in those moments where they were looking at somebody else. And I just, you know, showed out and performed. And as I went to University of Georgia, it didn't stop there. Continued to hear, you know, just about my height. Heard every single short joke in the book. I mean, when University of Georgia offered me, I was called midget, I was called leprechaun, I was called all types of things. And got there, was able to overcome that hurdle. Went to the NFL, same thing. Continued to hear that I was undersized, but eventually I had to realize that, you know, people are going to talk regardless. You know, regardless of what you do, how hard you go. People are going to point to those things that a lot of times you have no control over. So you have to focus once again on what you can control and maximize your gifts, maximize your potential. And even going back to the story of David, right? Like he fought his own battle. He leveraged what God gave him. He had that humility to continue learning, continue growing. And, you know, ultimately everything panned out the way it was supposed to. And I feel like my life is also aligned with that as well. And so, yeah, that was kind of my journey as far as being labeled undersized and overcoming that.
And Rennie, talk a little bit about how that fed into your humility. You probably remember one of the things I told you, you know, you already was blessed to be, you know, drafted by the Tennessee Titans, you know, which in and of itself is, you know, what is it? It's like a tenth of 1%, right? It's not even 1% of college. I mean, it's crazy, the statistics. So Rennie gets drafted by the Tennessee Titans. And, you know, and I was telling Rennie, one of the proudest moments for him was when he went out and bought a vehicle. I won't say what the vehicle was, but it wasn't what you think. You know, a lot of guys go out and buy, you know, Rolls Royces and you know, hey, Rennie drove around and it was a nice car. He decked it out, but it's the kind of vehicle that an average everyday person. And so, Rennie, talk about that humility, man. How did you manage to maintain that humility, you know, in the midst of all the accolades, Rennie was a big deal. You know, when you think about college football, his name was plastered everywhere across the country, you know, during his, and then you came out early. So even to put it in perspective, he didn't even make his senior year. All these awards, he could have gone and played another year and frankly, even had more status. Rennie, because he was such a gifted athlete as a junior, an undersized athlete, actually decided to come on out and get drafted. So, but Rennie, how did you maintain humility in the midst of all of that?
Man, that's a great question. And I think, you know, so many people get caught up in that success and it really, really destroys them ultimately. And for me, when I talk about just even my successes, I can't talk about that without talking about my beginnings, my foundation. And part of my foundation, a big part of it was my parents. Both my parents were Liberian immigrants who came here with, I mean, like nothing. My mom came here with $10 in her pocket, went to Emory to get her master's in nursing. My father came here after she was done getting her master's, and he left the job with the Liberian government. And he just picked up a skill. You know, a lot of immigrants do that. They'll come here and just to survive, they'll pick up something, whatever it takes to get the job done. I see some heads nodding, so I'm sure you guys can relate, but my dad picked up the skill of fixing shoes. And so he worked his way up. He built that skill level to the point where he was able to, along with my mom and my grandfather, buy into a shoe repair franchise. So he was my first example of entrepreneurship and just seeing somebody take something and, you know, build something from it. And during this time, there was a civil war going on in their home country of Liberia. So over 300,000 people lost their lives. And at this time, they both went into that leadership. They were both in that leadership position to be able to help cousins, uncles, and aunties come to this country and also just start their whole new life. And so that was my beginnings, man, just seeing how selfless they were, seeing the sacrifices that they made, seeing just the respect that they have for others, the humility that they have, just the work ethic that they have. So that's all I knew. And so regardless of what success I had, man, just having those early examples in my life of just what really mattered, like how you can take a platform and use it for something greater, for something that's bigger than yourself. Like that's that's woven into my DNA and who I am as a person. And so as I continue to rise, as I continue to grow in my stature as an athlete, I realized that it was bigger than me. You know, as I overcame being undersized, I started to come back to my community of Snellville, where I grew up, where I had so many people that blessed me, man. That's another part of it. Like, my parents were working so much that I was that kid who was picked up every single day for practice. Like, I was that kid who was on the free and reduced lunch meals once my dad lost his business. It was around the 7th grade. So I had coaches, I had teachers that spent extra time with me. I had chaplains, I had guys like yourself that poured into me. So once again, that was just a part of my DNA, just being helped, and then using, you know, where I was at, my platform, to pour into others. And so as I rose in success, it always just made me more humble and just gave me more gratitude to know, man, that like I don't even deserve to be here, right? Like, I'm a result of so much grace and so much favor and so many prayers and just so many people who have helped me get to this point. So there was no way I could ever get to that place and ever be, you know, start feeling myself or think that, man, I've arrived, or I have this special ability. Like, I just have to give all the honor and all the glory and everything to God. Like, that's it, because I had so many moments where it was like people did stuff for me, man, that like, I don't even know why they did it to this day. For example, a guy by the name of Chip Smith. Chip Smith is a guy who my Little League coach took me to when I was 12 years old. He took me along with his son. Like, how many people do you know that would take not just their child, but another person's child and take them to training and pay for it? And so he took me to Chip Smith, and Chip Smith was a guy who trained Brian Urlacher, who trained Champ Bailey. I mean, the top of the top athletes. And I worked out with Chip for a couple times. And after a while, like, I developed that relationship with Chip. He took me in like his own son, just like my Little League coach did. And I was able to train there for free all the way up until basically I got to the NFL. And so I have so many people like that just poured into my life, so many guardian angels. And so, you know, no matter what success I had, it was always about paying it forward, about giving back.
Man, phenomenal. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, the journey from UGA to the Titans and, you know, that whole pivot, that transition? You know, I was with you, you know, we walked together, of course, among others during that whole transition. So talk a little bit about that and how you have tapped into the perspective of overcoming adversity specifically. So can you talk about it from both the triumph / adversity vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Most people, they have no idea what you go through being that professional athlete coming out of college. I mean, we're so young. That's the first thing. I was 21 years old. I had just become a father the year before. My daughter, she's 12 years old now, going on, you know, 18. But at that time, I was a new father. So I was trying to balance being a student athlete and a father. And then, like, football wise, once you make that decision to leave, it's like you basically become the CEO of your own company. And how many 20-year-olds do you know could succeed as a CEO of their own company? I don't know many, right? So I immediately had to choose an agent, had to choose a financial advisor. Now I'm having to think about who I'm going to train with, you know, keeping my body right, because now my body is my business, right? So I had to upkeep that. And then as I, you know, went through the combine, that's like, imagine a job interview that lasts for a full year where every single thing matters. Right. So we go to the combine, they put us through everything. Most people only see like 10% of what you actually go through as you're preparing for that, as you're going through the combine. So you do everything from mental testing to they do full body testing. I'm talking about EKGs, your teeth, like they literally evaluate every single part of your body. And then you also do mental testing, personality tests, Wonderlic tests. They test your IQ. I mean, everything they put you through. Along with the interviews that you have to do every single day as well. And so went through that whole process, actually pulled my hamstring in my first 40-yard dash run. So that was another piece of adversity that I had to go through. Went to pro day, went through that whole entire process, and eventually found myself at draft day, which was one of its most exciting day, but it's also very, very, very stressful because you're just sitting there and you have no idea like where you're going to go. And so you're out that day. It was the second day that I got drafted. I was sitting in my parents' living room, and you know, I just start seeing the names after that second day. The names start going. They're drafting folks. Some of the guys you know and you're happy for. Some people you ain't never heard of in your entire life. You're like, what, they got this offensive lineman from University of Idaho, like what? And so you're just sitting there wondering where you're gonna go, and all of a sudden, phone rings, and it's the Tennessee Titans. It's Jeff Fisher. And he's like, man, I know you've been waiting for a long time, but man, welcome to the Tennessee Titans. And my whole life, all those challenges I just talked about, everything flashed, just like the movies, when they flash all those moments, all those game-changing moments, all the people that helped you, all the people that prayed for you, all the people that poured into you and encouraged you, all the times you heard no and you were undersized. And, parents were crying, moms crying, sisters crying. Like, it was just a special moment. And as soon as my name flashes up on the screen, my phone literally looked like it hit the jackpot. Like, just a million texts in 2 minutes. And that it was just a crazy moment where so many things were happening, so many things were changing. And I'm still, once again, I'm 21 years old. And, get to Tennessee, get to Nashville, a whole new city. I've never been away from Atlanta. So that was a whole process in itself. And, I started getting acclimated just to the life of being an NFL player, being able to help my family, being able to do so many great things for my community, for my church. But at the same time, like, this is now a business. People's jobs are on the line. Like, you are in there competing day in and day out. I mean, for those of you on here, imagine going to your job, right? You're sitting in your office, and every Tuesday they're bringing in people to take your spot, right? So you can never get comfortable. You can never think that, man, oh, sending this email, like, I can just send it halfway, or I could just show up to this meeting any kind of way. Like, no, you always have to be on, because you're always being evaluated. And so not too long after I got acclimated to being in the NFL, got the money, got the first, signing bonus, it was great. That second year, the lockout happens. They fired that coaching staff that brought me in. So some of us had that experience of, new regime change, new leader comes in, new boss. They have their own agenda. They want to bring in their people. And so I go from being that draft pick that first year to the end of my second year, them saying, Rennie, thank you so much for being here, but we're no longer going to need you. They drafted 2 new guys. They brought in 1 through free agency, and just like that, found myself back home. And, it was one of the toughest times of my life. I'm not going to lie. And that's when I really, really had to lean on my faith and all those things that have helped me to get to that point.
Rennie, man, I want you to go a little bit deeper on that, because, we had a conversation last week with our team, internally about, so the idea of, okay, so how do I say this? So you mentioned every Tuesday they're bringing in somebody to take your spot, right? So talk a little bit about how you manage the pressure of being coached, being challenged, because many people would argue that, if you challenge them too hard, if you push them too hard, now all of a sudden they're operating in fear, right? So how did you mitigate, okay, each Tuesday they're bringing somebody in to take my spot? And I have, because of, me being a college player, of course, our relationship, you and I know a lot of the same, NFL, NBA, we know a lot of the same friends, right? Who we all understand how that pressure makes diamonds, how that pressure pushes us. Like, that pressure for us has been life-changing in a positive sense, because it's what drives us every morning to get up and go get it, help those who have not had the opportunity to naturally experience that pressure, or they haven't been in environments like us where that pressure is real. What do you say to somebody who how do they balance and mitigate, like, accepting pressure to perform versus walking in fear? Does the question make sense?
Yeah. So accepting the pressure to perform without, navigating things in fear. Totally understand, man. I think you have to really embrace and accept the fact that, like, it comes with that platform, right? Like, anytime you ask to be promoted, anytime that you want to be at a certain level, you have to understand that it comes with a cost. And that's why a lot of times, I feel like we'll pray for certain things, but God won't necessarily put us there right when we want, when we want to, right? Because a lot of times it's either because of something involving our character, right? Like, we don't have that mental toughness yet. We don't have that ability to be disciplined yet. Like, this is something that we have to gain or acquire at that certain level, right? That we need to build in order to be able to thrive when we get to that position that we want to be at, if that makes sense. And so I had to understand and accept the fact that if I want to be at this level, if I want to be at the highest level, that there are certain things that are going to come with it, right? And so if I can't handle that, if I can't handle that being coached and criticized and, you know, being knocked down and having to get back up, then ultimately I don't deserve to be at that level. I'm not cut out for it. So it's just that mindset that comes with being at that level where you have to believe in yourself. You have to trust in your abilities. Like I tell people all the time, when you walk into that building in the NFL facility, when you're out on that field, like the level of confidence, the level of like just competition, the level of just you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the margin of error is so small that like if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have confidence, like you stick out like a sore thumb and you will be exposed. Like that's how high the level is, because everybody is great at what they do. Everybody's a top level athlete, but it really comes down to that mindset, and a lot of it stems from your level of preparation. And I there's a phrase that I use when I'm talking to a lot of organization, and it's you have to win. You have to be in the mindset of winning the game before the game. So that's another way that I was able to handle that pressure, because I won the game before the game. That means that before I even stepped on that field, before I even got in that film room, I had already prepared for hours. So the games that you guys watch, that's just second nature stuff. We've repped that so many times, right? That when we get in that moment of high pressure, when we're in front of 100,000 people, that it's like our mind is just automatically, automatically doing what we've been trained to do. And so that was a big component to be able to handle that pressure and not operate in fear when I got into those different moments, because you're just programmed to understand that this is what comes with being at this level, and you've already prepared like millions upon millions of hours. And then last but not least, I'll say just also embracing the fact that you can only control so much, right? You have to focus on what you can control in that environment. You can't control what the coach is going to do, what the GM is going to do. You know, you can't control how that other player performs, right? All you can control is yourself, and you have to focus on you in those moments. If your focus is all over the place, right, and you're trying to just be somebody you're not, or you're just operating inefficiently, eventually you're going to find yourself in a tough situation. And sometimes even if you do everything right, like just like I said, there may be a coaching staff change, maybe a GM that just likes a guy who's from Ohio State, right? So there's things like that are out of your control, right? So yeah, it's a tough thing.
Oh man, we could go. You and I could talk literally for hours. So Rennie, you do mental toughness coaching. You you spend a lot of time with companies, with executives, in churches, in nonprofit organizations. Actually, man, I got 2 questions for you. I actually have 100, but I can only I want to make room for others to ask too. And I'm looking at our time here. So one question that I have for you is, okay, so talk about or maybe talk about a time where you were challenged in a way that you had never been challenged before, and how you responded to that challenge, and how that response actually changed the trajectory of your life. I said a lot there. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Man, one of the ways, and this definitely happened after football. So this is, I think gonna be relatable to a lot of people in the business world. But after I played, or while I was even playing, I was getting into the world of leadership development, and just started by after I got cut from the Tennessee Titans, I was back home, started reading tons of books on just self-help, personal development, leadership. Started with Napoleon Hill, Law of Success, read Malcolm Gladwell, John Maxwell, just so many different books on, like I said, on leadership. And I just got addicted to it. And I realized that it wasn't necessarily about football, and that it was my love and everything. But for me, it was about the process. It was about the development. It was about the mindset, those intangibles, those things that, like I said, could not be measured, that helped me to operate at a higher level. And so I had always been a speaker, right? Whether it was with my team as a captain, or going back into my community, speaking to elementary schools and speaking to little league teams. But now I really wanted to leverage my platform. And so I started speaking just at schools, at churches, at Rotary clubs, wherever I could get into on my spare time. And, you know, I eventually got to the point where I'm starting to get paid for it. I'm starting to build my brand. I'm starting to, you know, really, really see some results. And this whole time I'm just back home. I'm still training 4 hours a day, waiting for a team to call me. And I connected with a guy by the name of John Gordon, who wrote a book called Energy Bus, and reached out to him on Twitter. And he started sending me some opportunities as well. And one of the opportunities that he sent me about 2 years, 3 years into when I started speaking was the opportunity to actually speak to a leadership team for the city. I believe it was the city of Bainbridge, but I had the opportunity to do a leadership retreat for them. And it was longer than anything I'd ever done before. Like, it was just going to be me and them for 3 hours. Like, I'm talking about the mayor, the person who does the procurement, like the person who runs the sanitation for the whole city. And I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And for me, with that athlete mindset, I'm not going to admit that I don't have what it takes, or that, you know, I'm going to say no to an opportunity that could change things. So I'm like, yeah, John, I'm in, let's do this. And so I'm nervous. I'm having imposter syndrome and whatnot at first. But eventually I had that growth mindset moment where I said, man, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to prepare. I'm just going to focus on preparation. I'm going to focus on what I can control. And where I am today is not where I'm going to be, you know, a month from now. This is going to be one opportunity in a list of hundreds of opportunities. So just taking on that growth mindset, knowing that I don't have to be perfect. It's about the process. It's about improvement, right? It's not about perfection. It's about improvement. Like, just saying those little things to myself allowed me to go in there and have that belief, have that confidence, have that certainty into myself, knowing that, like, I could deliver value to them. And that's exactly what I did, man. Went in there and it was a great day. We had a great time. And it just really changed the trajectory of my life. And even though I did eventually go back to playing with teams, like, that always stuck in the back of my mind that now, even if they cut me, I'm good. I can provide value to the marketplace outside of this jersey, which is what a lot of us struggle with.
All right. So can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you good.
Okay. So my last question, and then I'm going to turn it over for Q&A. So how do you help other people, Rennie, so you have embraced the idea of life throws curveballs at you, and then you embrace them, you pivot, and you keep going. A lot of people struggle with that, man. What advice do you give people who struggle with accepting change, who struggle with pressure, intensity, and like, okay, in order to get to the next level, I'm going to have to do some drastic shifting in my life. What advice do you have for them? And then right after that, if you could then tell everybody how we get in touch with you, tell us what we have going on. We're going to promote this. So how do people get in touch with you? What do you have going on? How do we book you? Just share that after you answer the question. And then we're going to turn over for Q&A.
Yeah, that's a great question. You're exactly right. So many people cannot handle change or just uncertainty as a whole, right? Just being in that position where they're not sure what's going to happen next, or they're in a territory that's unfamiliar to them. They lose somebody close to them. So now they're like, man, what am I going to do? They lose that job. They lose that business. And one of the biggest advices I would give when it comes to handling change is that you have to see change as an opportunity, right? You have to change your perspective to change. Once you can change your perspective to seeing it as an opportunity to learn something new, to build faith, to build your character, to build that mindset, something that's going to propel you for the future. I'm telling you, change will all of a sudden become exciting, because it's like, man, I don't know where I'm going, but I know that God has something for me. I know that this is going to turn out great, that on the other side of this is going to be progress, right? I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to develop, build new relationships, right? I'm going to become just a completely, just get closer to becoming that person that God wants me to be. And once I started to have that, what I call abundance mindset, it changed everything for me. So that was another thing. Just seeing that change as an opportunity and having that abundance mindset. And abundance mindset means to me that you are just one opportunity away, right? You're one relationship away, you're one meeting away, you're one presentation away from everything in your life changing. And once I had that mentality, man, it was like things just started flowing to me. And a lot of times we operate in scarcity, right? When we face change, when we're uncomfortable, when things are uncertain, we have that scarcity mindset where it's like, man, I don't know what's going to happen. You're operating in fear. You know, even if there's an opportunity out there, if it doesn't look like the way you want it to, you're like, oh man, nah, I don't know about this. And you're just moving in passivity, right? In fear and like I said, in scarcity. So I would say operate in abundance. And then the last thing I'll say too, just off the top of my head, is you got to surround yourself with the right people during those moments of change, right? Because there'll be so many people, misery loves company, right? There's going to be so many people who are going to plant those seeds of doubt. You know, there's so many distractions. There's so many things that can knock you just off your game, man. There's so many distortions as well. I mean, my gosh, we're living in a time of distractions, doubt, and distortions. And so you have to surround yourself with the right people who plant those seeds of inspiration, plant that seed of encouragement, especially people who have been through that change that you're going through, right? So I made the personal effort. I mean, I remember calling you. You know, I had guys like yourself, Hannibal Navy, so many others who had been a free agent, right? Who had gone through change and uncertainty that I reached out to. And I was just like, hey, man, am I going to make it through this? Am I going to be good? So sometimes you just need that confirmation. And I personally believe that we should all have our own personal board of directors, right? Just like companies have a board of directors, they have somebody who has influence in finance, they have somebody who's influence in business development, somebody who has influence, you know, in accounting. You should have that same personal board of directors. So when you're going through change, you have people to consult with, you know, and so those are my pieces of advice that I would give that I really believe will help any of you all that are on this call.
Yeah, and again, we're sending this out to about 5,000 people in our database too. So it's going to help. It's going to help a ton of people. Rennie, tell us. You know, you mentioned free agent. Tell us about the book. Tell us about some of the things you have going on, how people can get in touch with you, and then we're going to ask, you know, a few questions as well from the audience.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I wrote the book, Free Agent, man, when I was a free agent. So I was back home. Like I said, I was at my parents' house. I started journaling, like just to release all the frustrations, all the stress, all the anxiety I was experiencing at that time, being back home, not knowing what was going to happen next in my life. And I realized through the process of journaling that there were so many people who would be in this same position of being a free agent, maybe not in the sports world. And for those of you all who don't understand what a free agent is in the sports world, it's where you either get cut or your contract is up with the team. So you have the opportunity to basically choose your own destiny. So you're in that crossroads point kind of in your career. And I believe that we all face that point in life. So you may get out of college. You know, I thought about those who get out of college, they get that degree, but now they can't get a job that they want, right? Those who, like my father, lose their business after 20 years of investing all their time, all their effort. And now they're like, man, I put in all this work and it's gone for nothing. What do I do now? Right? They have to shift. That person who's, you know, loses somebody close to them, who's always been there, and now they just feel lost, right? Just all those people who get to those moments of feeling lost. How do you build yourself during this time? That's what free agent really is about. Just saying that we all become free agents at some point in life. We all get to that crossroads point, that time of transition. So how do you develop, you know, true confidence? You know, how do you develop true self-motivation? How do you develop true faith when all those things that really made you who you are now stripped away from you? When you take away the job, the relationship, the money, like that's when you really figure out who you truly are. That's a lot of what the book talks about. Just those developing those intangible assets as you're going through those times of uncertainty, and also how you learn what matters most in life when you go through those moments. So the relationships, how your faith is built, how your character is built, how you learn who your true friends really are, different things like that. So wrote it when I was, like I said, 24, man. It was just something I took a leap of faith on, man, and it blessed so many people. Still is selling to this day. And and now it created the platform for me to continue, like I said, to be a speaker, to be able to speak on leadership, on team building, on mindset and high performance. And then I also offer the one-on-one coaching as well, work with a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, executives as well, really helping them get that clarity. So whether it's life or business, I help them establish that clarity. Then that's the first thing we do is the process of just self-discovery. So I really learn about them, their challenges, where they are now, and where they ultimately want to be. And then from there, we focus on goal setting. So we set goals 3 to 6 months out, depending on, you know, where they want to be in terms of their business, or it might be their personal brand, or it might be their marketing strategy that they want to work on or improve some aspect of that, or just maybe they just want to be more organized and disciplined. And so once we set those goals and put them in place, then we have weekly or bi-weekly accountability, excuse me. And so I make sure that every week I'm getting them to track their wins in terms of like the goals in terms of like the habits that they're taking on, like get them to set a new routine and make sure that they're tracking their time and know where that is going. They're operating efficiently. I connect them with those in my network if they need it. So I really just try as best I can to provide as much value as possible. And it's, like I said, it's been a blessing to just see the results that I've been able to make for my clients that I work with. And the last thing I do is I have a foundation as well called the Game Changers Foundation. And we help current and former athletes in sports, business, and life. And we do this through community engagement, mentorship, and leadership development as well. So I've been doing a lot of great things there, man. So I really appreciate you having me on here. And yeah, I would love to answer any questions.
All right, Rennie. So again, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I've got a box popping up here. All right. So this is I've got about 1,000 questions here in the chat box. So lots of questions. You dropped a lot of good pieces of advice. I think what I needed to hear, you dropped in the first 30 seconds. I'm going to call it the linebacker mentality. And you said, regardless of where you are, make something happen.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice. And that's something that I'm going to carry with me going forward. No, thank you. So let's start out with the first question. In order to get to all of these, you're going to have to answer them pretty quickly. And
Sure.
I'm not promising everybody that we're going to get to all of these in the allotted time. So first of all, what does it look like in your life when work and faith intersect?
Man, that's a good question. When work and faith intersect, so it looks like me constantly having those conversations with God. It looks like me not leaning on just my own abilities and my own understanding and my own perspective, but really consulting with God and making sure that I'm operating in a way where I know that I'm within his will, right, for my life. And I'm doing things not because I'm trying to conform to the world, not because I'm trying to do what this person over here told me to do, but because I genuinely believe that this is the vision that God gave me in my heart. And this is what I'm going to live out. I'm going to live my truth. Right. So that's what it looks like for me when that faith and that work intersects. And it's so empowering when you make that decision that you're going to live in your truth and that you're going to, live God's will out for your life, man. I've had like even this book and the second book I wrote right there, the children's book I wrote with my daughter, those were visions that were literally given to me that I just acted on that led me to where I'm at now. And it's like if I had, wanted to fulfill how the world saw me as an athlete and just continue being that linebacker and hitting people full speed, which I loved, right? And not listen to what God was calling me to do. Like there's no telling where I would be right now. So I really have to lean on him for that understanding. Also, away from that success, it even looks like trusting God, even when things aren't going the way I want it to. That's big. Yep. When I'm making those calls, when I'm showing up and I'm feeling like, man, my efforts are going in vain, just still trusting him to know that something good is going to happen, right? If I just show up, if I just keep working, if I serve, if I keep treating people right, if I just keep trying to add value, that something good is going to happen. It may not even happen for me, right? It may happen for my child, right? So just knowing and trusting and believing that God is going to work things out for good, everything out for good, even the bad stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's great advice. And living in God's will is where it's at. I mean, that's where we all need to be. So thank you for that. All right. The next one is, how did your faith journey begin in a perpetual competitive environment like the NFL? How do you avoid falling into comparison traps? And I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, so maybe just elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, so my faith, I was always in the church, but I was a knucklehead. I had a mother. Yeah, I have about it now, but golly, it's like, you grow up in church is one thing, but it's another thing to actually find your faith and like, really find your identity in Christ and different things. So I grew up in the church, y'all. My mom was a prayer warrior. I used to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and she'd be, my head would be dripping with oil, like, holy oil and everything. Wow. So yeah. So man, I played the drums. Most people don't know I was a musician as well. So she got me playing the piano at 8, played the drums in church at 10, played in the orchestra, believe it or not, by my middle school years and whatnot. But yeah, it was always in the front row every Sunday and everything. And I learned just early on how to, just fake faith, right? Just I was in church, I was just kind of going through the motions and whatnot. But it wasn't until, man, that I got to like college and got on my own and really started to face those adversities in life that I really, really started to lean into that word, man. When I became that free agent and I was at home and I didn't know what to do. I had to get on my knees and just ask God, like, what do you want me to do next? What, you gave me all these muscles, like you gave me this feet, and now I'm just here. Like, what do you want from me? And so that was when that journey of faith really, really started. And throughout my journey of just being in those moments of adversity and, just having to navigate those things, having to lean on God, that's what gave me the ability to not compare, right? Because I knew that you could be up one day, you can be down one day, but, ultimately, like, God is the only constant, right? God is the only thing that is consistent. And I can't look at this person over here. And that's one of the things being at that level really taught me, because when you're in that NFL level, it also gives you access to other people, like celebrity. Like, you go to the Super Bowl and you'll see like Jamie Foxx, and you'll see like this person and that person, and you'll actually get to hang out with these people. Like, so I remember hanging out with, like Terrell Owens and Hayden Panettiere, who's a movie star, like, just trying to holler at her, like, trying to shoot my shot. But it's like you get to see these people outside of just like the TV screen and how people perceive them. And you start to realize, like, man, just because this person is at this level does not mean their life is all what it's cracked up to be. And I had that experience so many times where I saw people, and when those TVs and those lights were off, like, they were struggling, stressed. Their life was, and it's like people were pulling on them in all different types of directions. So I quickly realized that just because somebody's life looks so great, that does not mean, that's not all there is to it. And if I want to compare, if I want to be like that person, and I want to have their highlight moments or their highlight reel, I also got to be willing to accept their valley moments and whatever else isn't going right in their life as well. So that always was sobering for me and gave me that right perspective.
Well, that actually folds really well into our next question. During the 2021 Olympics, the mental health of athletes became the center of the world.
Yes.
How do you have good mental health under that type of pressure?
Oh, man, like, it goes back to what I said about winning the game before the game. Like, when it comes to your mental health, you cannot wait till you get into a crisis. You cannot wait till you have that breakdown to start thinking about, oh, should I get therapy or not, right? It has to be a proactive approach. We have to start seeing mental health in our mind, just like we do our physical health, and approaching it from that way. So it's not something that you do, like, you don't start working out when you're 400 pounds and your health is declining and you're about to basically, die. You start working out long before you need to, long before you even start to recognize those symptoms and those signs. And I think if we approach it that way, where we're journaling every morning, we're doing our affirmations, we're getting counseling, even if we don't need it, just to check in, right? Just to make sure things are good. We're just doing that. We're getting that counselor, just like you would go and get a personal trainer if you didn't know the right techniques, right, in the weight room. You're also, you're doing meditation throughout the day. You're taking breaks, like just little simple self-care routines. I think that will help people tremendously. But a lot of times we put performance, right, and we put hitting goals and hitting numbers and taking care of tasks, we put that to the top of our priority, and we forget those things that support our ability to be able to perform on a daily basis and manage ourselves holistically. So I think the approach has to change, and like, athletes are now starting to realize it. Coaches and other people are starting to realize it, that you can't just push somebody to perform. We're not machines. Like, you have to take care of the whole person. And I'm so glad, because it's changed dramatically. Even when I was playing, I mean, the last thing you want to do is tell a coach that you're not feeling right, or your mind, I'm off today, coach. People are like, you better suck it up and you better get on that field. And now things are starting to change, because it's really, really becoming an issue.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I haven't really thought of it quite like you put it just there. And again, I'm going to take that and go forward with that. The next question is, which transition was most difficult for you in your life, and how did you work through your own mental barriers?
Boy, wow, that's a great question. It's like there's several components of transitioning, right? And I think about it all the time. And a lot of people don't think about this, but the fact that there's the actual physical transition. So that's when you leave that actual job or that position, right? And then there's the mental transition. right? Of not being in that position, the constant like doubt and worry of what am I going to do next? What am I going to do now? And trying to adjust how you even see yourself. So if you go from that CEO to now, you know, being at home, it's like, dang, I'm not here anymore. So that whole transition. And then there's a transition of how people see you. So yeah, that's a whole transition in itself. So I go from being this guy who's up here, you know, who's, you know, I walk into a place, everybody turns around, oh, that's Rennie Curran, to now it's like, didn't you used to play? Like, once you, so people, you all of a sudden go from this celebrity and this person who everybody knows to a ghost overnight. Yeah, you come back to your university, somebody else wearing number 35 jersey, they're cheering for him, and you just kind of in the background. It is tough. And so like, you have to be able to overcome all those three things. And it really starts with knowing who you are and like redefining your own value. Like if you're one of those people who your value comes from your confidence and your self-motivation comes from your job, and it comes from how much money's in your bank account, and it comes from people validating you and admiring you, you are going to struggle. And so that was the first thing. I had to reestablish like who I was as a person. I had to reestablish like what my values were, what you know, what was really important to me, what my wins were, what a win was to me, because it could no longer be me making 20 tackles a game. I had to redefine what success meant for me. And so that was one of the toughest things. And until I got through that process of self-discovery, understanding my worth and my value outside of that jersey, it was a struggle. And I see so many, not just athletes, but people in general, they go through that. And you know, I'm luckily in a position to be able to serve them and help them as much as I can, but it's real.
Yeah, and you said earlier that your transition from college to the NFL was pretty tough just because of all the stuff that, you know, you had to take care of, getting a financial manager and this, that, and the other. I want to say that I think you were positioned probably better than 90% of the people that were transitioning into the NFL because of your foundation and your faith.
Yeah.
And so imagine what it would have been like if you didn't have that. And
oh man.
that you were able to carry all that forward in every single transition of your life. And so that's just a testament to how powerful, you know, walking with the Lord truly is in all these different transitions.
Yeah, I'll say something to that too, man. It's kind of like when you're, you know, when you're riding on either on the highway or, you know, in a mountainous area, and they have those guardrails or they have those things that like, if you fall asleep, it'll, you know, your tire goes over and it'll give that loud sound to let you know you're going off track, right? That's what I feel like faith represents for me. It's like, you know, no matter what happens in life, as I'm getting pulled and, you know, challenged and you know, life is just knocking me down, I have those guardrails, right? Which is my faith that I can lean on, that just gets me back. It gets me back into the direction that I need to be going in my life. And so you're exactly right. It's so important that we have those pillars in place.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I could see that in my mind.
Right. That's good.
All right, let's see. We got time for a couple more. With all the awards and accolades you have received, you said you would be remiss if you didn't talk about your team members. Talk about the value of a team.
Oh man, that's one thing I love to talk about. Like once again, so many teammates, guys who just, like I said, they literally sacrifice their bodies so that I could be in a position to make a play. And I use that as in so many different ways. One of the things I do when I'm speaking is I'll even show the different people who are part of my team, and not just the teammates I play with, but people outside of that, teachers along the way. I had a teacher by the name of Miss Finnegan. She was my 7th grade teacher. She came into my life at the time when like I was trying to be that knucklehead, that ladies man, and she just poured into me. She just kept challenging me. You know, even when the times when, you know, I had to spend summer school with her, like she would just keep pouring seeds of inspiration and just saying, Rennie, you can be a leader. Rennie, you don't have to be like everybody else. Rennie, you know, you're a good kid. And then that light bulb just switched. And I talk about those different people and just the qualities that they have. So she was that person that challenged me. Then I had Coach Rick, somebody in my life who held me accountable. So many of us, we don't have anybody that holds us accountable. And that's why we just kind of do whatever, right? So who in your life holds you accountable? Then I talk about my teammate, Danielle Ellerby, somebody who sacrificed his body, who I played right next to, and how he created opportunities for me. So who do you have in your life that creates opportunities that you can call on, you can ask for advice? And I talk about Jesse Tuggle, a guy who mentored me, who do you have in your life that's a mentor to you, right? And then I talk about another lady, her name was Miss Sandra, who was at University of Georgia, who's just the sweetest woman in the world. You could talk to her about anything. She was just there to listen. Who do you have in your life that provides that safe space, right? That you could just come and you can talk to, and you could take that mask off. You don't have to be tough with them, right? So there's so many different teammates that we need, whether it's on our job, just in life in general, that provide a certain quality. And then on the other side of that, being that teammate for somebody else, being somebody that challenges people, being somebody that holds others accountable, being somebody that provides opportunities for somebody else. So just being a good teammate too will do so many great things for you as well in your life, man. So I love talking about that, and I could go on and on. As you can see, just talking about the importance of having a team. None of us, as we all know, with this pandemic we just experienced, so many of us being in isolation, we now know just the importance, right, of just being around people, connecting with people, building relationships, and how that would just add so much peace, man, and you know, just so much value to your life.
Yeah, I like how you attribute, you know, people in your life as team members instead of, you know, just your teammates on the football teams.
Yeah.
You know, you spoke earlier about your guardian angels, and you know, those are your personal board of directors, and those are your teammates. Yeah. And I commend you for being able to see all those people that poured into your life in retrospect, because I mean, I can't recall everybody that has poured into my life, but just talking to you today has making me rethink that. And I'll probably have to reach out to them and thank them.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it's just a great perspective to have. And so I really appreciate that. I think we have time for one more. Let me scroll through here. Let's talk about the, let's see here. I was trying to find one about the game-changing venture that you have. So is your book written only from the perspective of what you've experienced, or does it include how-tos?
It definitely includes how-tos, but of course it's derived from my different experiences, you know, just coming up, being in the NFL, getting out, you know, being in that moment in life. And then I also, you know, during that time, like I said, I was reading tons of leadership books, tons of just self-help books as well. So, you know, there's a lot of how-tos that are derived from that as well. So yeah, it's like I said, it was a blessing to be able to do it. Something that is extremely therapeutic, and still, like I said, getting messages this day from just people that I could not even imagine. I mean, one of the coolest things is when I wrote the book, I was still in college. Like I was still trying to finish up my business degree. So I'm back at University of Georgia. I released it in 2013, right before I left to play up in Canada. And maybe like a week after I released it, I got a message from a soldier in Afghanistan who had just finished reading the book. He was like on his security post, and he shot me an email. It was like, man, thank you for inspiring me. And I was just like, wow, like I'm probably never going to meet this guy like ever, but he took the time to reach out and was inspired by something that I just took a chance on. So yeah, just been so many powerful just experiences through taking that leap of faith.
That's awesome. Well, Rennie, it's been a pleasure having you here this morning. I'll let Anthony, you got anything else?
Yes. No, man, just, yeah. Thanks a million, Rennie, for joining. Can you hear me? Yep. Yeah. So I couldn't see the questions from my phone. So I appreciate Matt fielding those for me. And again, man, thanks for taking time out. You know, we scratch each other's back quite a bit. So I appreciate you scratching mine on this round. And as always, you know, I got you on the next round. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But hey, man, again, we're going to get this out. We'll make sure you get we circulate it back to you so you can share it, but we'll make sure to get it out to our entire community. And of course, I'll be in touch very soon. Love you, brother. Thanks for your time.
Love you too, man. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best. Everybody on the call, God bless you. Keep fighting, keep going strong. Keep being a game changer.
All right.
Thank you, Rennie.
All right, then.